Hi, I'm Rob Hadley from Vancouver Hypnotherapy and Technical Hypnotherapy Association. Now, what I'm going to show you today is a very, very simple system which some of our therapists here use and which we're promoting a little bit into the Technical Hypnotherapy Association. It's a very simple technique within therapy. What we call this, we call it the Mercedes technique. And if you think of a Mercedes symbol, I'm going to have to apologize, I'm lousy when it comes to whiteboards, but let's just go with that. That's pretty close. Okay, what I want you to think about is the Mercedes symbol. And that is a truly horrible Mercedes symbol. So we're going to try that again. And we'll see how we go. Let's try that. Well, a bit better. There we go. Okay, the Mercedes symbol. Now this therapy, or this approach, is really used in the pre-talk. We start talking about the idea of a Mercedes therapy, or a Mercedes analysis. And what you're going to do is get your client to answer what three aspects of each of these sections most impact their life. So this section here, we're going to call relationships and family. Okay? This section we're going to call work. And this section we're going to call the self. So you're going to ask your client, in, say, the relationships and the family, what are the three most stressful things in their life? Well, let's say the girlfriend just left me, and let's say my daddy hates me, and we'll say the third thing might be my brother doesn't speak to me as much as I like. Okay, now what about work? My boss is an idiot. I don't feel I have a future. And let's say the third thing would be I don't get paid enough. Now, in fact, the work one we think of as financial life, work, and also studying for students. So relationships and family, work and studying, and then we have the self. And the self's a really interesting one. This is where you get physical health, mental health, or emotional health. We'll call it emotional health. And you can also add sexual and spiritual health. Now, especially when dealing with younger people, the idea of sexual health is less of an issue, and spiritual health depends on the person's belief system. So you've got essentially three areas: work and studying, relationships and family, and the self. Now, in this example, we're saying, okay, the person's got stress at three levels with the relationships. There's a girlfriend problem, there's a problem with his father, and there's a problem with his brother. The work level, we've identified three areas. Boss is a joke, there's no future to the job, and he doesn't get paid enough. And on the self, we might say, okay, the guy could do more exercise, perhaps he needs to just let go and not be so worried about so many things. Is he experiencing a reasonable sexual relationship? And if he is not, or she is not, how does that affect them? And spiritually, have they got a position or not? Some people have, some people haven't, but are they satisfying those sides of themselves? Now, when you take this group, this analysis, these three areas, you can then say, okay, of these areas we've identified that there may be some issues. If we were to say from each of those, which one is the biggest issue? we could say, okay, the girlfriend's the biggest one, the boss is a jerk, he really doesn't like the job, and let's say he's got a physical health issue. Right, now that then becomes the focus of your therapy within that hypnosis session. Now, and this is an important part of technical hypnotherapy, what we're always trying to do with technical hypnotherapy is create results that are, number one, measurable, and number two, tangible. Just to say, oh, I feel better, that doesn't count. You've got to say, okay, how is this person actually performing better? Well, they're doing better at work, they're finding things are going much smoother there, and maybe achieving bonuses, things like that. So measurable is really, really key. Tangible is very, very important from the point of view of technical hypnotherapy. Using this triumvirate of things, relationship and family, work and studying, and the self, and looking for which parts of those are satisfied and which aren't. We then identify, typically in a Mercedes type session, we say, okay, we're going to work on three things in the hypnosis. We're going to get you to sort the situation with the girlfriend out. It's either on or it's off. We're going to look at that issue with the boss. Is it recoverable, or is this now done? In which case, you know what, you're going to need to get another job. And the third area, okay, let's look at that physical health. Well, it's going to help you a lot to get into some physical exercise, maybe getting down to the pool or into a yoga studio, or maybe even just walking around the block at least once a day. But we deal with at least those 3 points, and we look for measurable and tangible success in each of those. During the hypnosis session, we focus on, say, those 3 points. One from each of these areas: work, study, relationships, family, and self. We focus on those, and throughout the session you use the phrase Mercedes. You talk about the 3-pointed star of this image, and you say that whenever the client finds themselves behind a Mercedes looking at that symbol, this is going to come right back to their memory. And you ingrain that idea in their mind. As you do so, you're going to find that they are then constantly re-triggered, re-engaged in this idea through their week. Oh yeah, have I done my exercise? What am I doing about my boss? Have I actually addressed this issue? Should I talk to human resources? Or should I just get that paper out and start looking for another job? I'm not sure anyone actually looks for a job in the paper nowadays, but the point is, they're constantly reinforced whenever they see either a Mercedes dealership, an advert for a Mercedes, or whenever they see that symbol on the back of a Mercedes. That 3-pointed star in the center of the circle, remember, it's got clear lines between it. We keep our work at work. We deal with our relationships separately. We deal with ourselves separately. And we commit equal amounts of time. We say, okay, yeah, 8 hours a day work, that's plenty. Well, we have time for our relationships as well, and we have time for ourself as well. If the self starts to squeeze down, if we don't put that effort into ourself, then we suffer. If our relationships are taken over by the amount of work we're doing, guess what? We suffer. Everything has to be held in balance, and when we hold it in balance, we're more likely to achieve success and feel a lot happier in ourselves. If work is too big, family and relationships suffer, and the self, that is physical health, emotional health, sexual and spiritual health, they're sure as hell going to suffer too. So this is an idea which, within technical hypnotherapy, we hold quite dear. It's one which you can engage in your hypnosis sessions as well. It's very, very simple, and each time the client comes back to you maybe see your client 3 or 4 times, each time they come back, you begin to focus more on each of those issues which comes up. It might be that you choose a different set of 3 issues with each visit. It doesn't really matter whether you keep reinforcing the same ones or you choose different ones. Eventually you're going to find the client begins to achieve success in some areas and that the others follow through as a result. But most of all, the idea of focusing on balance and equal amount of time and effort in work, in relationships, and in self. And we do talk about the steel bars that separate each of these areas. When something isn't acceptable and it's creeping into a neighboring area, for instance, if we work so hard it's affecting our health, well, let's put that steel bar in place. Let's create the boundaries that actually lock that behavior into a relevant place. Okay, if you've got any questions about this, email me either here or through the technical hypnotherapy association, and I'll be happy to answer those questions.